Welcome to today's webinar, Chart Your Growth with MIDIOR's Market Map. My name is Joseph Zorikong, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. This is the third in a three-part webinar series where we share our approaches to driving products and services towards success. Our first webinar, Competition in an Age of Disruption, was offered in October. It highlighted MIDIOR's competition cube as a way to assess the competitive landscape and develop competitive product strategies. Our second webinar, Drive Better Product Decisions with MIDIOR's Product Market Advisor, was offered in December. It presented our framework for evaluating products in the context of their target markets to support team discussions and product investment decisions. Both webinars can be accessed on MIDIOR's website. Today's webinar will be a panel discussion with two of MIDIOR's partners, Susan Lecanto-Penta and John Suter. Susan is our managing partner and co-founder. She's an engineer, serial entrepreneur, educator, and consultant, and is widely known for her work supporting product and technology teams. Susan is also a member of the adjunct faculty at Northeastern University's DeMoore McKim School of Business, where she teaches courses in innovation and entrepreneurship. John is also a MIDIOR partner. He heads both our associate and intern programs and is MIDIOR's expert on market assessment. John's a master of market data analysis and visual communications, and is known for his work generating insight and analysis to drive sales growth. He's also a filmmaker. Susan and John are going to spend the next 20 minutes talking about one of our foundational frameworks, the market map. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to them.
Thanks, Joseph. Our mission at MIDIOR is to unleash the power of products and platforms to solve real problems, optimize business processes, and deliver value. I co-founded MIDIOR with Michael Goldberger, and we just celebrated our 20th anniversary as a consulting firm. Michael and I got our start in the mid-1980s as a successful product team. We launched our first software company in the early 90s, which we sold in 1996. MIDIOR was born in 1997 to support product and technology teams on their quest to drive growth and build value, and we remain committed to that objective today. If you're participating in this webinar, you already know that your job as a product professional is to deliver the numbers, build the future, and drive your product's contribution to the top and bottom lines. To do that, you need to make decisions on what to build, how to prioritize development resources and marketing dollars, and on what the ideal customer looks like, so the sales team can find them quickly and not waste time on the wrong targets. We support product teams as they make these choices. We analyze these markets in terms of the available solutions, current competitors, buying constituencies, and perceptions or voices of those buyers. We also assess these same markets in terms of size, value, and growth potential in order to measure opportunity. This creates a solid basis for our clients' decisions about future growth. Our focus today is on the MIDIOR framework for analyzing markets and opportunities that we call the market map. At MIDIOR, we consider the market map to be a foundation for any analysis. We use it as our first step in defining the market for any opportunity or product we are assessing. Using our market map ensures we paint the whole picture. We call this establishing context. The market map is essentially a master grid of rows and columns that captures a market according to logical categories of problems being solved and the products that solve them. The map breaks out these categories further by key feature or capability and maps those categories to available products, market size and scale, and customer profile. This master grid is then used to answer questions and is often color-coded or heat mapped according to what's important to show. It is also used as a way to direct research and analysis. The market map is both logical and useful, and like our product market advisor and competition cube, it can be used to support a solid business case or generate a product plan. Our tagline at MIDIOR is changing the way you think. Today, we want to change the way you think about how to analyze potential opportunities for your products and services. I'm going to hand the presentation off to John now to give a little context for how big grids like our market map have been used to drive growth and support decisions.
At MIDIOR, we look at the world like engineers, which is to say, in order to solve a problem, we have to understand it. And in order to understand it, we need to be able to frame it. So I'll start with a problem New York City was facing in the mid-18th century, which was like the problems many other cities in America were experiencing. New York City at that time was concentrated in Lower Manhattan. Its growth had been organic, but the city was cramped and disorganized, and a breeding ground for public health epidemics. As a result, its size and scale were limited. At that time, the grid that we all know didn't exist, and New York City was just 17% larger than the next largest city. The New York City Grid Plan, also known as the Commissioner's Plan of 1811, changed this. It has been deemed the single most important driver in New York City's growth and development. After the plan was adopted, New York City grew rapidly, and by the mid-19th century, New York City had grown over 8 times and was 300% larger than the next largest American city. This growth has been directly attributed to the power of the grid. The New York City Gridiron, as it is also called, produced the 11 major avenues and 155 crosstown streets that are still used today. What many people do not know is that navigating New York City addresses is easier than you think because the grid plan uses algorithms that help people pinpoint an address and envision it on a grid. For example, let's take 476 Fifth Avenue and figure out where it is on a grid by finding its cross street. To do this, drop the last number of the numeric portion of the address. Divide the remainder by 2. Add or subtract a magic number that can be found in a table, in this case 18. So 476 becomes 47. 47 divided by 2 is 23.5. 23.5 plus 18, 41.5. So 476 Fifth Avenue, also known as the New York Public Library, is at 5th and 41st Street. In this way, the New York City Grid provides context for where an address is and how to navigate there. So you can imagine a city that was easy to navigate was also easier to grow and manage. My next example describes how grids create context. Let's say someone offers you free Red Sox tickets. Is it worth it to travel to Fenway? Without knowing where the seats are in the stadium, it's hard to know if free tickets are worth getting to the game. Obstructed view seats or seats in the outfield may not be worth the effort. The stadium grid here helps you see the entire picture and supports your decision about whether or not you would take the tickets. A well-done map should provide you adequate context so you can make an informed decision. Here's another example. Let's say you're at a large conference where there are multiple sessions, tracks, presentations, etc., and you need to plan your time. A conference schedule, in this case a film festival schedule, is a nice simple example of a grid in action. Can you attend the sessions that interest you? To avoid conflicts and or logistical challenges, you need to know a couple of things. The day of the session, the venue, the time frame, a visual comparison of the session duration, color coding of groups of content. While most conferences have some kind of mobile app to ease the scheduling, most people still make a decision by looking at grids like the one here, even if it's on a phone. Creating a visual of the entire picture usually requires some kind of logical framework that allows users to take information and take action. The market map derives from this concept. I am going to pass things back to Susan now to talk about actually creating a market map.
As you just learned from John, the market map is based on the concept behind an actual map. It provides context about where you are or where you're headed and is a framework for helping you think about how to get there. Creating a market map is conceptually easy, but a good market map usually takes time to create because it requires some trial and error, multiple iterations, and a willingness to question the truth. When we do any kind of market assessment, we know we will need to gather plenty of different types of data, both qualitative and quantitative. This means we will do significant secondary research, gathering data from many sources, including vendor websites, information blogs, and financial documents, as well as market research reports and primary data sources related to the products, markets, or their customers. This is complemented by primary research, where we will interview experts in the field, competitors, distributors, packagers, consumers, and so forth. All of this takes time, and we find that our assumptions and opinions do evolve as our knowledge expands. On your screen is an excerpt from a market map that we created to look at certain markets for consumer products, food, beverage, health, and beauty aids, that were possibilities for a new packaging technology that had been developed. The technology was called self-heated packaging. This technology would heat a product using a flexible battery when on the go. The market map this grid was extracted from was built to assess the growth potential or opportunity for that new packaging technology. So to build a market map, keep in mind that the important first steps are to define the product or service categories according to the problems they solve. Here, that is represented by the blue P columns. Next, to define the key vendors who offer products in the market that should be represented on the grid. That's represented by the purple V columns. You marry this information with various measures, the green M columns here. These quantify the market at the desired level of granularity or market segment. And finally, you layer in as many relevant customer profiles as you can surface for the market. Here, those are represented by the orange C columns. We often add more criteria or columns than what you see, distribution channels, for example, but these four are the core column types we use to build our market maps. So we usually start the creation process by taking a client's product or product line as the initial beginning point. So that means we're usually starting at the P3 or P4 column level. This means we sort of start in the middle, using the client's own view of the market that they have defined. Next, we do primary and secondary research, so interviews and surveys, along with gathering data in order to build out the map. Essentially, we're building to the left and the right of the column where we started. Here, that would be represented by the P1 and P2 columns to the left of the P3 column, if that's where we started, as well as the V columns to the right. If you collect enough information, you should be able to broaden the map until it represents the market in the most general terms and reflects how the customers would see it if they were about to make a purchasing decision. Then, you add enough M columns to represent the measures you want to use to quantify the opportunity and ultimately prioritize the segments that have the best overall growth potential. These columns might represent revenue, unit shipments or subscriptions sold, numbers of customers, average prices, you get the idea. The process is iterative, and adjustments are usually necessary as you collect data and confirm assumptions. You then add customer profile information based on what you've learned and map that in. For example, you might log whether the profile is relevant to a particular segment. The last step is to make a choice about adding those additional columns, the additional criteria. For example, is a distribution channel relevant? What about delivery mechanism or packaging type? As the map gets built out, it's easy to review progress because you can see where the gaps in the data are. You can challenge assumptions and develop an informed opinion about the market, its growth potential, and so forth based on what you've learned. Once the market map is as complete as you want it to be, you can layer in highlighting, such as heat mapping or color coding, to demonstrate patterns or make points. John, maybe you can share a little bit about how we use this particular map to drive our answer to the client question of whether there really was any growth opportunity for self-heated packaging technology applied to certain consumer goods.
Using the market map as our base framework, we selected consumer goods segments that were potentials for self-heated packaging technology. As you can see here, this went way beyond baby food to include things like body oils and lotions, instant coffee, and salty snacks such as popcorn. The map will help you calculate the big numbers, the total revenue opportunity, for example, because you now have the little numbers which add up to those big numbers. And the acceptance of big numbers is much easier when you have the supporting details in a framework the team has been using and understands. In this case, the quantitative information we collected was complemented by primary research, interviews, and surveys. In the end, both the quantitative data and the interview data were combined to demonstrate the market was small and that consumer perceptions were in the way of success. For example, while mothers on the go were interested in easy ways to warm formula, they were not so excited about putting a big pile of batteries into the trash and polluting the environment. In our case, the typical use for market map is market analysis. Whether you're sizing a market in terms of units or dollars, looking at trends, or assessing growth rates, the market map provides a way to organize your data. But it provides a basis for other kinds of analysis as well. It helps you understand competitive landscape by giving you a way to record, analyze, and present competitive offerings or competitor market share, etc. It can give you a way to look at product market fit and identify technology cliffs or the potential for market disruption. The two most common questions market maps help answer with respect to technology are: one, which companies in which segments of the market are poised to introduce new technology, and two, who will be left behind. With publicly available secondary information alongside marketing collateral and your own anecdotal knowledge, you might consider populating each cell in the vendor columns with the competitor's underlying technology. What emerges is a picture of the market based on key technologies, which should help your product team identify cliffs and areas ripe for disruption, as well as emerging technology trends on the horizon. Finally, it gives you a way to identify potential partners or companies that could be acquired. Do you know why competitors choose to partner with a certain company? The market map can be used to generate partnership screening criteria if this is a viable growth strategy you're considering.
So John just talked about some practical uses for a market map. On your screen, you actually have a zoomed out view of an assessment based on a market map we created to evaluate partnership opportunities as a key growth strategy. While you can't see the details, what you can see is that this grid is a presentation tool. It is a way to show information and hopefully make it jump off the page. It's a framework for answering different kinds of business questions, and it's a data tool for both collecting data and showing results. When we share our recommendations with clients about growth, for example, they are usually curious about the underlying data. So we use the market map as a way to organize it and walk them through how we got from data to recommendations. It also happens to be a key to efficient analysis since it exposes where the research is required or lacking, and it makes it easy for multiple team members to work on sourcing information independently for any particular row, column, or cell. What you should take away from this webinar is that a market map is essentially a big grid. It's a set of rows and columns with thoughtful organization and lots of data that characterizes the market, and which can be color-coded or heat mapped to answer questions or highlight key patterns or points, particularly as it relates to growth opportunities. Creating a valuable market map requires time, but it is certainly worthwhile. The key is to define the hierarchy of problem categories, as well as products or services, so it can be used to establish common language and force consistency of thought. A willingness to iterate over and over as information is surfaced and assumptions evolve is also critical. For example, if you are interested in a particular product category or problem area, you can take a deep dive into the competition, the opportunity, the customer profile, etc. Done well, a market map will serve as the driver for your analysis and should yield the basis for prioritizing the market segments and strategies that have the best potential for growth for your product or service. I encourage each of you to try your hand at creating a market map, no matter how simple or complex, and use that market map to define your markets and support your growth.
Thanks, Susan. If you ever find that you need a little bit of help, the MIDIOR team is expert at doing this and would be happy to help you construct a market map and chart your growth. I'd like to quickly thank both Susan and John for a thought-provoking presentation. And on behalf of the entire MIDIOR team, we appreciate your time and interest.